I remember watching my hometown drift away from the back window of my car, and I was so happy about it. And after a 30-hour train journey from Kolkata, I stepped foot into IIT Hyderabad. I remember someone telling me that no one can prepare for college, one can only try.
Hi everybody, today I am interviewing none other than Sankho. Sankho is a college YouTuber himself who studies at IIT Hyderabad. He is immensely creative and I've been a follower of his films for quite a while now. Hi Sankho, thank you so much for coming to the channel. Would you like to introduce yourself to everybody who doesn't maybe know who you are?
Yeah, sure. First of all, really thanks for having me. It's a great pleasure to be here. For anyone who doesn't know me, I am Sankho. I am currently pursuing engineering B.Tech. Again, that's the holy grail of every Indian child that goes through. I also have a YouTube channel, small YouTube channel, talking about my experiences, my life and productivity and stuff. Make sure you check that out.
Perfect. So Sankho, the first question I wanted to ask you is, I think this is the video where most people would probably know you from, but it's your video about your first day at IIT Hyderabad. And I think the line that stood out to me was the first line as well as I think the last line, which is,
Do you ever look back on a particular day which turned your life into something you never thought it could be? I know mine. July 23rd, 2019.
and I think what stood out to me about that video was that to you being a college student at such a fabulous institution like IIT is so much more than just the academics. It's so much more than the student life, and it's much more about how a student can find meaning and purpose as well as the relationships they make outside of the classroom. So how did you find that meaning for yourself? How did you find that purpose? Because so many people are just stuck in the rut of doing things inside the classroom. So how did you find meaning, and how do you suggest maybe other students also try to find things outside of the classroom that can engage them?
Yeah, so talking about my experience, there are a lot of really unexpected things that college brought to me. I remember one of my seniors telling me that you can only try to prepare for college, you can never fully prepare for college because it is a whole new experience that no one can see this whole thing coming. I had a particular sort of surprises that hit me when I went to college. Like I didn't know I could fit into groups of people. I didn't know people would like me for who I am. I didn't know that I could speak English. That is the biggest mind blowing shit I found in college. Well, I'm not from English medium school, and I have never had to speak English ever in my life until I went to college. And when I went to college, I saw it is obviously in Hyderabad, so most of the people are South Indian, and majority of the people don't understand Hindi. So I was like, dude, now English is the only way to communicate here. And when they approached me, I kind of stayed alone for the first few weeks, and later some of my pod mates or some of my branch mates, they approached me to talk to me, and even I was surprised, how am I speaking English? I was not that good, but I was like, dude, however I'm speaking, this is enough to get the job done, at least for the whole college life. And those are the things that I understood more about myself. I still don't know how I learned to speak English. And there are other things, getting into a group of friends. I've never had this big of a friends group before college. And after I got into it, I understood how I liked what kind of people I liked, what kind of zone I wanted to be in, what kind of conversations I like to have. These are the things that I'm understanding more about myself. Like people always talk about how college life is about exploring different societies, different cultures, and different opportunities that is out there. I also think more than any of that, it is more about exploring yourself, understanding yourself a little bit more. And this phase, I think it begins in college and goes on for the entirety of life. And so I
Yeah.
think everyone should go into college with an open mindset, trying new things, facing your fears. I'm like, I literally have a checklist of fears that I want to go through. Like I
Wow.
wanted to speak in front of camera, done. And now I want to sing in camera, that is done as well. I next have to dance in front of camera and upload it to YouTube, obviously. Yeah. And I have to go on stage and do something.
Right.
These are
Right.
the checklist as of now.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I think the one theme that kind of stood out to me when you were talking about, interacting with people is this whole idea of, being a little socially anxious and having a little bit of social anxiety and not knowing, where you fit in, how you fit in. And people face that in all realms, whether that's a public speaking competition, whether that's even opening up to yourself, opening up to your close friends, or maybe interacting and making new friends at college. So how do you think you sort of grown and developed as a person who might have experienced some of the social anxiety before? And how do you think, YouTube, college, relationships, all of those things kind of helped you try and navigate this whole world of social anxiety?
Yeah, so like if I start talking about the Sankho that was in school around 10th, 11th, I was really camera shy. That is why I have like minimal amount of pictures from before 10th. And around the period when school was finally ending, that was for the first time in life something huge, something important that was ending for us. And we got the realization that these are the friends that we're not going to meet every day from now on. So
Yeah,
that is something I thought like this is something to cherish. This is something I should keep close to myself. And the only way I could do that, I could keep all these memories, these little things that maybe bunking class together or running out in the field, all those things I could only keep with me if I could document all this.
right.
So
Yeah,
the only way I could do this is by taking photos or videos of the whole thing. And I had to face that fear of camera at that point. Yeah, so this is something I do. I have this bullet journal, and each 6 months, I will make a future log, things that I want to achieve over the next 6 months.
right.
And when I was starting college, I made a future log as well for the later half of 2019. And one of the was post at least 5 photos of your face on Instagram or on any social media. And this was the first photo that I posted,
Oh my
which I took
God.
in college. And it has a caption saying, post at least 4 pictures of your face. I wrote in the future log in main future log, which was made for the remaining of 2019. And I figured I'd never be out to get out of this insecurity and being scared of cameras if I don't start now. I don't particularly like any photo of mine. That didn't change, but someone told me you get used to putting yourself out there and you get more comfortable with it as you start getting into it. And
Right.
one thing I promised myself for my whole college life is that I'm gonna get out of my comfort zones, and this is one of them I'm hatching. Doesn't seem like much, but it is a huge personal victory considering my second ever solo photo on the web. I deserve ice cream for this.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. So that is when I first got out of my camera shyness. Again, if you see, after that, I first was talking to the camera in my YouTube videos after a little while. Because yes, taking a photo is a whole different deal. Talking to someone is a whole different deal. And talking to a camera with no one around, that is totally different. You understand that.
Yeah.
And that took a lot of courage. I somehow brought up the courage. And when I first did it, it was not in the script, not in the planning anywhere. I just got that surge of enthusiasm that I'm going to do it today. And before that could get away from me and the fear starts crippling in again, I just quickly shot it and uploaded it. It was at a 10-second or 15-second talking to the camera, and that really helped. And all this thing, as I said before, like YouTube was like the bigger monster
Right.
compared to talking to people, talking in clubs or Google Meets, because more than 1,000 people are watching you over here. And if you can beat that, these things seem like really easy things to do. So that is a psychological thing I think that happened, and I'm not really as scared as I used to be to talking to in meets or something. Still, I am pretty nervous when I'm talking to new people,
Yeah.
but yeah, this is a journey I'm on, and I'm definitely making great progress with it.
For sure. For
Also,
sure.
you know, as an introvert to start with, and also a pretty shy person, I would not even talk to the waiters in my any restaurant I go to. So there's always this extroverted friend who just adopts an introvert, right?
Right.
Yeah, so that was Abhishek for me, and he used to pull me to every function, every event, and every birthday that he went to. And I made a lot of friends over there and talked with a lot of people, and people are really nice. they judge less. They like to talk about things more. They like to talk about their interest, your interest as well. So yeah, people in college, they really helped me get out of this, and I still have a lot to improve, but I'm getting somewhere with this, obviously.
Yeah. I think it's almost this idea that you go for the biggest challenge you see out there, and then all of the other individual challenges beneath it just become psychologically a lot easier to deal with.
Yes.
And I think it's kind of funny. Sometimes I'll speak to like when I was in school, I would address the entire school, which is maybe like 400, 500 people. But then I don't realize that on YouTube, I'm probably speaking to 20,000, 30,000 people. And I think the idea of social anxiety comes from the fact that you're afraid of what the other people will think about you and what the other people will say directly to your face live. When it's a live interaction,
Yes.
it makes it a lot more intimidating than an offline interaction where I can upload a video and tomorrow 100 people will see it, or 1,000 or 10,000 people will see it,
Yeah.
versus addressing an audience of 10,000 people at that moment, because every single decision you make in that second can influence how those other people see you, and it's a lot more unscripted and it's a lot more authentic and real. And I
Yeah.
think the more you do something, the more you get used to it as well. So kind of like it's almost like taking an ice shower versus like going slowly into the cold water. You just throw yourself
Yeah.
into it. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. And another thing I kind of got from your initial answer was all about picking up English for the first time. I think that's really interesting because I think today a lot of students, whether it's high school students or college students, English is kind of the way to differentiate yourself from others, in the sense that it's almost like a social class that you're transcending. If you speak English, you're seen as superior. Even I get a lot of comments on my YouTube channel where just because of how I speak English, a lot of people appreciate that, which is nice. But then my Hindi is terrible, and which is like a bigger shame, right? So I think one question I really wanted to ask you is, how did you become more fluent? Because if even not even talking about English as a language, but just being a more fluent communicator, and getting your message across when you want to say something and you think about something, but then making sure what you say lines up at what you think, because so many people just have a huge mess up right at that intersection.
Yeah, I think about particularly talking about English, again, as I said, I'm not from an English medium school, so I never had to speak English or never had to listen to anyone speak English in school ever, till high school ended, like 12th. And that is why a lot of people talk about, some people, I get a lot of comments about my weird accent. Don't try to get into this fake accent, dude. And well, I think like most people who went to an English medium school, their Indian English accent kind of comes from seeing their teachers or seeing their peers talk in that Indian English accent. And I never had that. Where I learned English is from, at least I can understand, is from cricket commentaries. And cricket commentators have great English. They talk really good English there. And from Hollywood movies, obviously, they have good English. So I think my brain kind of imitated their accent of English, and that is what I try to imitate. Not really try to, like unconsciously try to imitate it.
Yeah.
And I can't really get out of it, as the English suddenly came to me when I most needed it. And coming to the clarity of thought, I think people who are more self-centered, not in a bad way, like who think about what they're going through, being mindful about what they're thinking. These are the things that can be like related to talking to yourself a lot.
Right.
And just as you said, the more you do something, the more you get better at it. If even when you're not talking to other people, even when you're not communicating with others, uh, people who are shy or introverted generally talks a lot with themselves.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the clarity of speech also matters there, although it's not as intimidating. But talking to yourself and framing your thoughts in a particular way, that I think has helped me get better at my communication skills, and also writing scripts for YouTube videos, because then you have to make your story compelling,
Yeah.
give a hook, then build suspense, then all this structure. And writing hundreds of, not to be hundreds, and I've written at least 50 scripts, I guess, for YouTube videos. And that really helped me structure my stories, structure the thoughts that I put out there.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, mostly writing scripts and talking to myself. Those are the
Yeah.
main two things that helped me improve.
Those are really interesting. And like, You know, another thing that I was reminded by as you were talking about like YouTube was kind of the impact that also social media can have in you. You know, you are very selective in what you put online, but I think there are a lot of people who get completely absorbed, and it leads to this idea of whether you're just getting absorbed by something or whether you're being actively engaged by something. And I think a lot of students today really get confused between the difference, confuse one for the other, and do a lot more of one than the other. So how do you feel about the whole idea of, you know, absorption versus engagement, and what do you think you do that engages you so that you don't even worry about, you know, that passive watching of Instagram videos or playing games, etc.?
I think like everything that we do in our daily lives can be separated into two categories: consumption and creation. And I think in this day and age, a lot of people have way more consumption than creation, because the way I started using social media, like Instagram or platforms like YouTube, I only started using it when I wanted to create something and when I wanted to put something out there on that platform. I
Right.
still open Instagram very rarely, but I open Instagram when I have to post something, when I have a cool little video that I made or some kind of picture that I took and I wanted to upload it. That's when I open Instagram. I mostly open YouTube when I want to learn something. Like I'd be watching, yeah, I do those that like mindless binging of videos as well. So I would suggest something to everyone who can relate to this: take a break from social media, like completely get it out of your life for 1 or 2 weeks, and then after you come back to it, I'm not telling you to quit it forever. After you come back to it after a week, you will have a whole different perspective, and you will see yourself spending a lot less unproductive time on social media. That is something I have been doing for like 2 or 3 years now. I take a break of 15 days, maybe 3 or 4 months, every 3 or 4 months, and that really helps me to keep
Yeah.
myself in check.
Yeah. I think the core idea is this idea of attachment, you know, how attached you can get to something. And I think you need to take a small break from everything in order to make sure that your attachment levels aren't getting unhealthy and that you can, you know,
Yes.
successfully gain perspective. Like it's almost like when you were preparing to get into an IIT, you had a certain perspective because you were so attached and involved in the process. But the moment you got into college, your perspective about college changed because in a sense you're detached from that entire process and you're looking at it from a third person perspective. So I think the same way,
Hmm.
whenever you take a break from any unhealthy relationship you have, whether that's social media, whether that's, you know, any preparation or anything else, that break gives you that external perspective, and then it makes everything a lot healthier and more balanced for you, in my opinion.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think another thing that really stood out to me was that you spoke about art, you know, art as something that
Hmm.
was an outlet for you, art as something that was a creation for you. And I think a lot of people don't think about art because people are like, you're either born an artist or you're not. You know, you can either draw well or you can't. And I think something that you demonstrate really well is that put in enough practice. And if you like something enough, it doesn't really matter the quality of what you're creating. The act of creation itself will make you feel happy. It's like I can make a dish, but I might be a horrible cook. But making that dish and putting that effort into it almost makes me attached to it. So, what has your journey been like with art? Why is it so important to you? And how do you think it helps you have that outlet for creation that balances your consumption?
Yeah, I think I started draw. My whole journey of art started with drawing. I'm pretty sure around 7 years back when I
Right.
was in seventh standard. My cousin used to draw. We live in a joint family, so we live in the same house. And my cousin is an amazing artist. He took art classes when he was ever since I remember in my childhood, and um, I got inspired by him. I wanted to like I looked at his drawings and I was like, I should try it too. I have a lot of time because seventh, eighth standard, you have a lot of time
Right.
at
Right.
that moment, and I'm not really learning anything else other than studies. I'm not really going out, so that's when I started drawing. And my first drawing was really horrible. It was really bad. You couldn't even recognize who the character is in that. And I think one thing that changed a lot over the period of maybe 4 or 5 years is that now if you're an artist, And you can't be an artist and draw something and not put that out on Instagram and not put that out on Facebook for
Yeah.
other people to see. And that is a really intimidating process. When when you create something and you put that creation for other people to see, that is really intimidating, because obviously those thoughts come into mind. What are going to people say? What if people hates what I made? And looking back, when I first started drawing, I didn't have a phone. I had a laptop. I had a desktop that back then, and I didn't have any social media accounts. I didn't know much about social media accounts, and me drawing was just for the sake of drawing, because I enjoyed the process. It didn't matter who saw it, and it was mostly my dad who saw my drawings. No one else did. So it didn't matter. There was no external validation needed at that point. It was just
Right.
me having fun. It was just me doing something that makes, like, gives the feeling inside of me. So I drew and I kept drawing a lot over the last 4 5 years. I think I've drawn at least 500 drawings.
Wow.
And through that process, I mean, I tell this to everyone. People say, you're so good at drawing. Can you give me some tips? Where did you learn? And honestly, I never learned anything about drawing, not even from a YouTube tutorial or anything. I just watched and I kept trying something until it turned out to be something considerably good. And
Yeah.
through that process, I tell everyone, dude, I challenge you. If you take up drawing and draw 100 drawings over this year, I challenge you to not improve and not draw something great after 1 year.
Yeah.
And this is one part of it. And the other part of it, which I already talked about, is that the external validation that was not needed at that point. But if I draw something and does not look good, it seems like a waste of time, because I cannot post that on Instagram and I cannot get those likes. That
Yeah.
is also happening inside of me, as well. And that is, I think, something that should be addressed. That is something that was better maybe 5 or 4 years back.
Yeah, yeah. That's actually a really interesting point. And I think, especially about people asking for advice instead of trying something out themselves, I think this correlates quite well with your just the short film that you just released, which is The Loop, which is about how people expect you to give them a roadmap instead of trying to find out what their roadmap is, because everybody's journey looks completely different, even though you might have the same
Absolutely.
end point. We both wanted to get into college, but both of us had completely different experiences of getting into college and what we had to do to get into college. So what do you say to people who always expect to have a plan given to them by somebody who's done it before, or expect to find the things along the way by just learning from other people or studying the theory, instead of actually just going out there and trying it themselves and doing it themselves and experimenting along the way?
Some people understand, some people don't. Some people still gonna come back and ask me, how many hours did you study, how many hours should I study? And I understand, because it is a really scary place to be in 11th and 12th, because your whole family is counting on you. Because from a family perspective, thinking of it from a parent perspective, what they had to do is put you in a good coaching, or give you some good tutors, and give the coaching fee. That was their job, and they did it. Now a family feels like, in most cases, your family does not, or your parents does not know about JEE, or how the JEE preparation works, and any kind of preparation works to a minute level, right? And they think they have done their job and they should get an outcome. And that is what every kid thinks, that my family is counting on me to get into this college. And that is a really scary place, when you realize that, shit, I messed up, I don't have much time, and everyone is counting on me, I can't share this with anyone. That is when people reach out. And
Yeah.
I totally understand that. I totally understand. Even in my preparation time, I used to look up videos about roadmaps of JEE, how to clear, how to study organic chemistry in 6 months, all that thing. And I really understand that. But I think at one point, the realization that this is a waste of time, even if you can't find the perfect roadmap, instead of finding the perfect roadmap, you can just get out on the road. You can make some mistakes, get at least halfway there, or as far as you can get. That is the best you can do at that point, because searching for the perfect roadmap will not help. It's like asking Sachin Tendulkar how to become a good batsman, right? He cannot give you a roadmap. He can maybe fix some small issues if you are already a decent player, but you have to get there on your own. Nobody else is gonna like pull you with them
Yeah,
in,
yeah.
in there.
Definitely. I think that there is always a really high value in seeing what other people have done, but that's only after or if you're willing to do it yourself as well. Like both of them have to come hand in hand. So I don't think they're
Yeah.
isolated incidents. It's much more like it's a confluence, you know, it's a combination of all of those things. But I think another thing that was kind of interesting is about students, and I think you've touched on this as well, is the idea of productivity. And you know, how many hours can somebody study in a day, or how much can somebody possibly do, and how they can absorb knowledge by putting a book on your head like you showed in the video. But I think that, like, you know, the whole idea of productivity, and especially on YouTube, the whole content of productivity came on in like 2015 and 16, and ever since then people have been trying to optimize every second of their lives to the
Mhm.
fullest. So how do you see that entire world, and how do you think you've altered the meaning of productivity for yourself so that you can lead a more balanced life?
Yeah. So for the over the last year, or at least last 6 months, there are people making videos about how self-help is ruining your life and those kind of videos. And those are really good realizations, I will say, because this whole hustle culture that is really glorified on the internet, this productivity. There are some people who actually talked about, I'm not taking any names, who actually talked about watching anime at a higher speed, watching a movie at a higher speed. You know who I'm talking about. Yeah. Yeah, and those are the things that really messes with my head. I don't agree to those stuff, because suppose a movie or an anime is something that you watch to have fun, and that is also a piece of art that someone has created, and it is at a particular speed for a reason. The creator of that anime wanted to watch you and wanted to um, get through the story at a particular pace, and if you're speeding it up, you're missing a lot of things, and it sort of, I don't know, it kind of hurts me at that one point
Yeah,
looking
maybe
people do
I
this.
mean, maybe even to a certain extent, you're disrespecting that creator by rushing through the
Yeah, yeah,
artwork that
yeah.
they've poured so much time and effort into.
Exactly. But again, I don't go around explaining this to people. Do what you want. I don't mind. But again, optimizing every part of your life and every minute of your life, to be honest, and trying to be as creative as you can be, as productive as you can be, not wasting a single minute of time. All this seems really restless and frantic to me. If this is something you have to go through, like we have to get through college, being from a Indian middle class family, even if you don't like it, it takes up a lot of your time. But having at least some period of time that you can involve in something that you enjoy, I think that is really important. Some kind of unstructured time, like having 4 hours or 3 hours of your day where there is no routine. You can do whatever you want. If you want to sleep, go ahead. You want to watch a movie, you want to talk to your friends, I think that is really important. And these are the moments you're gonna cherish later. The hustle, I'm not against hustle. If you like hustling, if you like the franticness in your life, that is totally fine. Whatever makes you happy. I'm really been advocating for happiness over hustle, this thing I always say. And ideally, I'm really trying to get to somewhere in life where I can be happy with myself. And right now I'm happy. I'm happier compared to maybe what I was maybe 2-3 years back, and that is a really great achievement for me. I learned to love myself a little more. So yeah, the frantic productivity way too much is not good for most people. And another thing is, don't idealize someone and don't try to copy someone else's productivity kind of lifestyle. What is working for Matt Diavella or Thomas Frank is not supposed to exactly work out for you. It's not supposed to perfectly fit into your life. Yes, try out everything and see what works for you and see what doesn't work, and don't be afraid to recognize that something that works for Thomas Frank does not work for me, so I can just ditch it out of my life and figure something out as my own. So I
Yeah.
think all this self-help is not really harming, as long as you're just trying to look from someone else's perspective and trying to get some experience and get some like seeing the whole thing from a different point of view. As long as it has that mindset, that is fine. But if you're reading a book and with the mindset of adopting everything that is written in that book and taking it into your life, I think that is really harmful after one point.
Yeah. I think you touched on quite a few points, and I think one of them that definitely stood out for me is thinking that, everything should be relevant to you or nothing will be relevant to you. Like, especially with a book, I think a lot of people look at those 300 pages, and if the first 5 pages don't click with them, they'll ditch it. Or if the entire book clicks with them, then only they'll adopt it. But most of the times it's very modular. You take bits and pieces from a variety of different
Mhm.
sources and combine it, because you yourself are a unique person, right? You yourself have so many of those experiences. Some you might relate to, some you might not relate to. And even for productivity, like, one thing I'd like to say is, like, just because you choose happiness over hustle does not mean you yourself have not spent days or you're studying 10 hours a day. Like, that just means that it
Yeah.
was spent in a higher purpose for that point in time, but there were still moments in those days or moments in that week or moments in that month which you will truly cherish and remember. I think sometimes when I also work a lot, I realize that even if I spend 8 hours working, that 8 hours is a blur for me. Like, you don't really recollect that, and maybe 1 year down the line, you're not going to remember those 8 hours you sat down in one spot and did everything. But it'll be maybe that one conversation I had with a friend, or one thing my family member said to me. Even though it took like
Mhm.
5 or 10 minutes of my day, that's what really stood out of that entire 24 hours. And I think, to sort of close everything up, and the last big conversation I wanted to have with you, um, was about content creation and storytelling, actually. And I think that, especially as someone who was introverted, going and doing YouTube can teach you a lot of things you might not have expected to teach you. It can have a lot of good sides, can have a lot of bad sides, and most importantly, it just makes you a sharper communicator. It helps you tell stories. As I think something is, you're also something, it's something that you're really passionate about as well. So what do you think, being on YouTube for this period of time has taught you, and has grown in you, that you might not have expected? And also, what do you think is the relevance of storytelling in your life, and why do you think you want to share stories with the world, even though a lot of people might think that their stories are too insignificant to share? Because that's something that even I personally used to think 2 years back.
I was really fascinated about how the people, like how the people tell some story and make it so exciting that people watch it for 2 hours. That seemed really exciting. There are people on even YouTube who make short films that is 10 or 15 minutes long. And on this day and age of TikToks and Reels, which are really short, quick fire content, capturing an audience for 10 minutes is a huge deal. And that really fascinates me. And when you're talking to people in even in real life, outside of the social media and YouTube thing, whenever you're talking to someone, you're essentially telling them a story.
Yeah.
Unless it's small talk, you're either telling something about yourself, telling something about your experience, telling something about something you fantasize. It's always about telling a story. And we always think, like I used to think it's the same 2 years back as well, that our stories are so trivial to ourselves. Why would anyone want to hear it? And we don't realize that what seems so trivial, and people come from a whole different background. Everyone has a different backstory as a character. If I want to say, everyone has a different backstory, and every other character's backstory can seem really interesting. This is something that anime has taught me. Like, if you have watched Naruto, you know how they flashback of every character's backstory and how they do the character building. So that is when I realized that every character's backstory can be really interesting if the story is told in a good way, good and engaging way. So that is something I always tell my friends, that if there is one skill that I want to improve in my life, it is storytelling. Because
Yeah.
I think storytelling is how we communicate in all parts of our life. No matter who we are talking to, no matter what purpose we are serving, it is always about storytelling. And if I can become a storyteller, I can become a better communicator. I can make people engaged and give them the same feeling that probably a good edited YouTube video or well said story can give them.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that is a purpose I think I serve in this life. And also, like when I talked about drawing, right?
Right.
After a
Right.
point, I was only drawing people in my life, people I know, because I really like the feeling. Like I'm pretty sure most people like it when you do something for other people and they get like really surprised and happy about it. And that
Exactly.
feeling really stuck with me when I first drew someone I knew. And I was like, dude, if I draw some celebrity, they're never gonna know I drew them. It is obviously enjoyment for me. The whole process is a good fun to make. But if I draw someone I know, there are two people getting happy, and there is this connection that is getting deepened, and there are a lot of emotions flowing in that whole process. And I think storytelling does something similar. When you hear someone else's story, I think people connect to them on a deeper level. So that
Yeah.
is something I want to do with my audience. I don't want a huge audience. I want a good audience who connect with me on a deeper level.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
So that is why I think you can see my channel banner as well. It says I'm learning to tell
learning
stories.
to tell stories. Yeah, exactly. And I think this is something I heard somewhere, but someone once said that I don't think there are boring people. I think there are just people who don't know how to tell their stories well or in an engaging way. I've heard my friends tell me stories about the most mundane events in their day, but they say it in such a way where I'm completely grasped, I'm completely hooked. And then there could be other people who might be talking about maybe their expedition to Everest, but they narrate it in such a monotonous way that you kind of lose interest. You're like, okay, I got it. You went there, you came back. That's about it. So it's really the medium and the way you say something that's important. And then I think another thing that you said that was quite interesting was community. And I think how YouTube sort of gives you a community. And even for me, like, yes, I would like to grow as a YouTube channel, but when I look at the impact I can have on the number of people who are already watching the videos, if that impact is high, then I'm happy. There are people who get tens and millions of views, but the audience isn't impacted. You didn't leave a mark on that day. I would much rather my content, and I'm sure you would feel the same way, to leave a mark on someone's day and get them to think about something, get them to reflect, and then maybe get them to work on themselves or create something of their own, that they can then share with the world. So it's like a chain effect or a chain reaction of creating and
Yes,
sharing.
yes. If I can, like, if I realize something after 2 years that is really thought provoking, that to give me a new kind of realization, if I can at least ignite that spark in them, that spark of thought
Yeah.
in some other people, they're gonna have a whole new perspective. They're gonna have a whole new story to tell. And I personally communicate and engage with my community on my Discord server. They're really nice people, and people who actually like see me as their older brother, people who share their lives with me, people who share their little things that happen in their life, how they got a new computer, how they're planning of buying a new guitar, and what they think about this girl they have a crush on, and everything they do. And like, that is one of the richest experience that I have within this community. And I think that is something that I aspire to grow
Yeah.
as well. And as I said, I don't need a huge audience. I need a audience that is deeply connected with me.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. But thank you so much for this, Sankho. I think I personally learned a lot of things. I think my favorite thing was also bullet journaling and writing stuff out for the future. That's something I'm going to try and pick up after this conversation. And I think to tie things back right at the very beginning, I think that one line you had in the video that first blew up, which is can you think about one moment or one time in your life that particularly turned everything upside down and you turned into a different person? I think what stood out about that video to other people is that they, after that video, thought about moments in their life that stood out to them and turned everything down. You're asking a question to your audience and they're reflecting and they're thinking. And before this interview, I went to that comment section and I saw, like, even like 4 months ago, someone is saying, this is the 10th time I'm watching this, or I come back to this video whenever I feel demotivated. Like, that is the effect that a well-told story can have on someone. That is the effect that a message can have on someone. And it's so funny how you, coming from one small part of the country, can have a message that literally reaches the entire nation and literally reaches a million people, which is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I think this is something to thank technology for, all this social media and YouTube that has came and boomed into India over the last 6 7 years. I think this is a really nice opportunity that we can finally tell stories to other people and a lot of people on the internet.
Yeah.
And yeah, that is something really nice about our generation, really nice opportunity we have got, and we should make the best of it.
Exactly. It's still crazy to me that, I can connect with you. Like in a normal life, we probably would never have intersected at any point in time. You do your own thing,
Yeah,
I do my own thing. And the fact that, we could have one conversation yesterday, do an interview today, and this interview can then go on and impact other people, that like blows my mind.
absolutely, absolutely. This is really something people could not have thought about maybe 10 years from before now.
Yeah. But thank you so much for doing this. I think this was really great, and I hope people listening to this can take a few nuggets of advice that you've given, I've given, and really taken and internalize the perspective and think about how it could possibly apply to them as well.
Yeah, really. Sorry again. Thanks for having me. And again, I also hope some people get something out of this. I hope it is not a complete waste of time.